I'm a big believer in the idea that someone can come into your life for a very short period of time and have a massive influence.
Okay.
I truly believe that.
Okay, so what do you want to get?
Should we order breadsticks?
We can get some breadsticks.
Why? Why would we order breadsticks?
Oh, not this. Can we just...
But what is the reason? What is the actual reason for ordering breadsticks?
BJJ doesn't work for self-defense because you should never go to the ground in a street fight. All fights end up on the ground. So which is it? How can two opposing statements both be untrue? In this video, I'm going to explain to you what anti-grappling is and tell you the real way to defeat grapplers. I don't know that the people that need to understand this are ever gonna, because this is the sort of thing you need to experience to understand. But maybe if you're looking for self-defense advice and you're kind of sorting through everything that's on the internet, you'll hear one of these statements: never go to the ground in a street fight. All fights go to the ground. And it might seem like there's some logic to both of those statements, which is how these myths get propagated. Promulgated. Something-agated. But these statements don't really stand up to the most basic level of scrutiny or logic, mostly because they're absolutes. Now, all fights going to the ground is a little easier to sort out, so we'll cover that one first. The simplest, easiest way to dismiss this particular piece of nonsense is just the fact that we have YouTube now. We can watch videos of fights, and they don't go to the ground. So all fights going to the ground is just an untrue statement, because we have plenty of videos of fights that don't. Fights in the UFC where ground fighting is allowed, and maybe the participants don't want to fight on the ground because, I don't know, they want their fight to be more interesting. Or self-defense or street fight encounters where they just didn't. It didn't happen. And that might not be through some skill, it might just be through chance, but there are fights that don't go to the ground. But a lot of fights go to the ground, right? I'm pretty sure there's a statistic that says a large percentage of fights do end up on the ground. Well, sort of. It depends on where you got that statistic. Most of the proponents of grappling are getting their statistics from studies done on law enforcement uses of force. Well, that doesn't really apply to most people, because a law enforcement officer, when met with resistance, typically won't flee. He won't run away from empty-hand resistance, and he's trying to get the person into handcuffs, or maybe incapacitate them and then get them into handcuffs. That's best done on the ground, so it behooves him to take that fight to the ground, or if the fight is going to the ground, not to necessarily try and stop it.
People like breadsticks.
Why are breadsticks so special? Why do people choose breadsticks? Why do you think that is, Joe?
Well, it's different. It's something different than pizza. People like variety.
Is a breadstick sufficiently different that you can call it variety? Do you truly believe that?
Okay, so no, it's basically the same thing. It's bread and sauce and...
The sauce on pizza is quite different than the marinara typically used with breadsticks.
And there's no cheese.
What about cheesy bread, Joe? I'm sorry, I'm an asshole, you know I had to.
Okay, so yeah, the bread, right? The bread's different. The bread's not the same as pizza crust.
It's a combination of water, flour, yeast mixed together and baked to form a food rich in carbohydrates. While it's very filling, it lacks nutritional value and goes stale very easily.
Okay, so it is the same?
There is a massive difference.
We don't want to take someone down. I don't need to learn takedowns because I wouldn't want to take somebody down in a street fight because of the aforementioned glass and needles, or, third party stomping on my head while I'm fighting on the ground. But again, because we have YouTube, we can binge watch street fights all day long. Don't worry, you don't have to. I did it for you. And an alarming amount of the time, no one gets stuck with a needle. There's way less needles out there on the ground stabbing people during street fights than people in the comments section would have you believe. Another thing that might make those dudes uncomfortable is that when someone initiates a takedown, there's a large amount of the time where that is the person who wins. That's the person who prevails. There are tons of scenarios where it is a good idea to take a fight to the ground, even in self-defense, even in a street fight. if it's your drunk uncle, if it's someone having some sort of emotional episode, if it's a person who you're stronger than, or if it's a person who you care about. Not every fight is life and death, despite what those keyboard warriors would have you believe. They think that they're gonna throat punch every single person that looks at them funny. So saying that you don't need to learn takedowns because you would never take somebody down in self-defense, maybe there's some logic to it. I think it's just a cop-out so you don't have to go to practice. But even if you would never intentionally go to the ground in a street fight, what about when you very unintentionally go to the ground in a street fight? Now we get into the whole anti-grappling thing, and this is really fun. Anti-grappling, if you don't know, quick summary, it's just the things that people say they would do to defeat takedowns and stop takedowns that aren't found in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling or any other grappling art. Things like just if someone tries to take you down, you just step out of the way, or you elbow them in the spine as they're taking you down. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, because I'm going to do a video on all the anti-grappling techniques soon. But here's the problem with anti-grappling. It doesn't happen. It never materializes. I would ask for a video of these things working, and even if they only work once, I'd like to see videos of them working on a regular basis. You wouldn't be able to produce them. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of footage of wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu working. Like, think how ridiculous it would be if I said, yeah, right, show me a video of punches and takedowns and chokes working. Like, that would be very easy to do. Now, one big argument that they'll make why we don't see them is because they're illegal in sports, because they're too deadly, right? Well, at one point they were not. In Vale Tudo, almost all of that stuff was cool, and it was okay, and there was no gloves. They'll blame the gloves, or they'll blame the floor, or they'll blame whatever, but it just doesn't happen. And if you're not convinced, if you're still on the fence about whether any of this garbage can be used to defend takedowns, I'll just hit you with this. This'll solve it once and for all, hopefully, probably not. Name me one thing that it is possible to get good at without ever doing. Just one thing that you could never do one time, but become really good at it. Good enough at it that you'd say you consistently do it at nearly 100% success. You've never done it, but you can definitely do it every time. I don't know of many skills like that. Defending takedowns is a skill. It's one you have to practice. So you have to go to wrestling practice, which again sucks. Or fighting your way off bottom sucks. You have to go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class to learn how to do it. And they say, well, you don't have to do that because I would just do this. How? How do you think you would just do anything that you've never done? You have to practice. The guy you go to learn how to fight on the ground is the same guy that teaches you how to stay off of the ground, is the same guy who teaches you how to get off of the ground if you end up there. It's the same skill set. It's the same training methodology. We're going to learn takedowns today. I'm going to take you down. You take me down. We're going to learn takedown defense today. You're going to take me down. I'm going to try to stop you. I'm going to fail and get taken down. So on and so forth until one day I stop the takedown. I stand back up. I take you down. Ooh, now you stop mine and take me down. And then one day it becomes this, and we get really good at it because we practice it a bunch. There's no anti-grappling. Anti-grappling is just grappling. Grappling done for the purpose of protecting yourself from the other person's attempt to grapple. That's also just called grappling. And beyond the skills, you need to develop the same attributes for grappling, combat sports, self-defense, fighting. It's all the same shit in a different toilet. You need to have bone density. You need to have explosiveness. You need to have strength. You need to have determination. Your wrist can't get rubbed real raw every time somebody grabs them. You need grip strength. You need neck strength. You need core strength. You need strength. You get strength at practice. You get strength at training. Yes, it sucks. Yes, my neck hurts. Yes, I have cauliflower ear. Yes, all that sucks, but you can't not do any of that and then think that you are ready to do any of that. Anti-grappling is probably one of the most frustrating things that gets thrown around in discussions about martial arts and self-defense. If you hear a person say something like, "I would never go to the ground in a street fight," that guy's full of shit and he can't fight.
I feel like nothing I say is gonna be right.
Oh, you're nearly there, Joseph, but there's something that you're missing here, something big.
What am I missing?
What is the most comforting part of a person's morning routine? The first cup of coffee. The first cup of coffee combines a familiar ritual, a sensation of warmth, the chemical effects of caffeine, plus a wide variety of additives, milk, sugar, creamer, ice cubes, and a vast array of flavoring. What would happen if you came downstairs and none of those additives were available to you? What would you do then?
I would drink it black.
You would have no control.
Look, if you want breadsticks,
The reason that people order breadsticks is to have control. You control how much sauce is on each bite. If you prefer a wet, soggy breadstick, you can have it. If you prefer your breadstick somewhat dry, you can have it. If halfway through the breadstick you change your mind, you're allowed to do that. The breadstick allows you to choose. I'm a big believer in the idea that someone can come into your life for a very short period of time and have a massive influence.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
I truly believe that.
Yeah, we've heard that a
In
bunch
my
of...
case, it was the great American YouTuber Icy Mike. Icy Mike was invited by Matt Serra to have pizza with us, but when he showed up, he didn't order anything. He didn't order any food at all. He went to the man behind the counter and he asked him for a side of marinara, which was quite unusual. And after we had finished our meal, he was gathering our discarded crusts and dipping it into the marinara and eating it. And I said to him, it's really interesting what you're doing there. I don't do that. That's not really something that I do. And he said to me one sentence that would change my outlook. Why would I ignore 15% of a slice of pizza? One sentence. Why would I ignore 15% of a slice of pizza?